your draft philosophy on a couple different questions. Right off the bat, 49ers got 11 picks. First pick's number 99. Generic thinking, forget players or specific whatever. Do you want the 49ers to kind of use those 11 picks, or are you wanting them to kind of get aggressive and trade up and maybe make 8 or 9 selections, but focus on more quality type players?
I don't like when they trade up, to be honest with you. They don't do it well. They don't do it well. They
Dante
traded up
Pettis
for
says
Dante
hi. I'm just
Pettis.
saying.
They traded up for, I guess, Trey Lance is, we don't know. That could be a great trade up. It might not be. We don't know. They traded up for Brandon Ayuk. That worked well. But trading up for Dante Pettis, trading up for Trey Sermon. Didn't they trade up for CJ Beathard? They just don't trade up well. They don't do it well. For whatever reason, it just doesn't work. I would love for them to use a lot of those picks. I think they have seen that their draft philosophy by paying a lot of high level players and then accumulating compensatory picks for their, mid-tier level players and then replacing them with chief draft options that they coach up to become mid-tier players who will then ultimately get a contract and then they'll replace them again. It's a great system. It's a beautiful system. They have it working. I think they draft better in the late rounds anyway, because, when you're drafting in the late rounds, it becomes less about, like, Bill Parcells, for example, used to always say in the top 15 picks, you always take the prototype, right? So the guy has to be a physical prototype. He has to, if you say a corner has to be 6'1", 200 pounds, runs 4'3", in your definition, that's what an elite corner is. That's what he has to be. And so when you get to the later rounds, it's a lot less about, hey, this guy has this athletic skill set or whatever, as much as this guy has this thing that fits within my system, right? That's why you have the draft differentiations in the grades, where John Harbaugh says Fred Warner wasn't even a draftable player for Baltimore, who's, an organization that's very good at drafting and has done it really well for years, whereas the 49ers looked at him as a third-round pick. It just depends on fit and what you're looking for in the positions. And so the Niners do a really, really good job at just identifying specific skill sets they need, and they coach those skill sets really, really well. So that's why they succeed with these late round players. And so, John, I would love for them to just use as many picks as possible. Just keep bringing in this young talent, because they have been killing it. I mean, the last 2-3 years with the after the third round draft, like, they really have been killing it.
And that's why this team is able to be sustaining depth while still having all these high-paid positions, right? And so you got to balance those things out. I like this comment from Oscar. And this is interesting with the 49ers. He says, best available based on need. If I put any draft question out there on Twitter, whether it's a poll or whatever, the first 3 comments are BPA, best player available, which, and I get that. And I buy into that philosophy. The 49ers don't. The 49ers draft for need early, then best player available late. And I think that's a big reason why you said, like, they've had so much success later. It's because they do draft for need early, and that doesn't usually pan out. So, look at this. We got Nick. What's up? The Godfather's in the house. Nick is the man. He comes to most of our road trips. I don't think he was in Chicago this year, though, so I think we missed him. He says, appreciate the super chat first off. Thank you, Fred. He says, what's up, guys? Great to see you both on a show together. Looking forward to hopefully hanging out this season. Would be cool if Vish could make it out so I could meet him. Vish made it out to back-to-back Chicago years.
I did.
Are you planning on making a Niners game this year? I think we talked about this briefly last time, but I'm trying to get you on the record as many times as possible so we can hang out for 3 years in a row.
Yeah, no, so maybe. I love coming to the events. I love interacting with the Niners fans. I'm just not a big fan of watching the game in the stadium. I don't like it that much.
Gosh, man, I love it. I'm such, like, whenever I go on road trips, if I see like a high school football stadium, my wife knows, like, the conversation for the next 5 minutes is like, I'm just like, oh, whoa, what's up? What's that press box look like? How many people? Like, right. I'm a goober, man, whenever it comes to stadiums and getting people together. But yeah, we're going to try. We're going to twist his arm. We're going to try to get him out there as much as possible. Now, and here's a question that I think is interesting and adds more context to this draft philosophy. Big Papa says, if there's a player, I believe we trade up, do we have enough room for 11 spots on this roster? Here's what's crazy. The Niners keep so many of their draft picks. Last year, you drafted 9. Only one guy didn't make the roster. The Tariq, it was the corner from Penn State. with 3 names.
Right. Tariq
Gosh,
Castro Fields.
thank you so much. Thank you so much. Everybody else made the roster and still on this team. There's 61 players currently signed. Maybe it's at 62 now. You got to get to 90. So I don't know. You want to keep those spots. If they draft 11, how many do you think of for those seventh rounders? How many do you think are going to actually make the initial 53 or even be put on pup like what we did last year with Kalia Davis?
Yeah, so if they can play, they're making the 53. The vet minimum being $1 million has made teams not want vet minimum players. And so you have this new practice squad rule, right? Like, what did they do with Tevin Coleman? What did they do with Tayshaun Gibson at the beginning of the year? Teams are
Yeah.
noticing that you just roster all the young guys at the 53 and you can get guys off the street that you'll probably come in and have them play. Like Michael Dwofor at the end of the season was playing over second round pick Drake Jackson, and he was on the practice squad, and Drake Jackson has been on the 53-man roster forever. So they've kind of nailed this philosophy down. So it really, if the guy is not on the team, that means he is not good, pretty much. Like, they don't think he has a future or any capability of playing. Because, like, even Ambry Thomas, who had probably zero chance of seeing the field, right? Janoris Jenkins was playing over him, and Janoris Jenkins was, basically signed off the street and then immediately was playing over him. But he still kept his roster spot just because of nobody wants to pay that $1 million veteran minimum. That's why we're seeing the market dwindle for these 28, 29-year-old, 30-year-old players that are kind of like mid-level, because teams are like, why would we pay them when they'll just be available for us to come in and play if we need them for 2 games, and then we can just have the backup be our rookie guy who's way cheaper and we'll develop him.
Yeah, I like that. Another thing that I keep seeing on Twitter, we're going to have Jason Hurley, the 49ers cap guy, on the show next week. I think it's going to be Thursday, so stay tuned for that. But I keep seeing the 49ers need 9 million cap space for their draft choices, but that's not correct because you only the top 51 contracts figure into the salary
Right.
cap. And so right now, anybody making less than 800,000, that's a cap exemption. They don't even count. And so
Right.
with all these picks making about $1 million because they're all late round picks, like, you don't need that much money. You're talking maybe $2 million will count against the cap. The rest are going to be, they don't apply to the top 51. So I don't know. We'll take that. Now, here we go. We're getting into it.
I will say one thing, John, that I would like them to do in this draft. I would love for them to stack picks for 2024.
Ooh, they already have 9.
2024, right, and you get your first round pick back. If you can, draft, maybe trade one of those. I mean, of course, they're compensatory picks. Usually you're not necessarily going to trade your compensatory picks, but if you could maybe, accumulate a couple more picks for 2024, given, what they already have, they're going to get all their picks back because they're out of trade depth. I would be very, very happy, because one of my predictions is that this is the last year of this iteration of the 49ers. This is the last year that we're going to see the core of Trent Williams, Nick Bosa, Deebo Samuel, Eric Armstead, George Kittle, Kyle Juszczyk, these guys that have been, the 49ers' best players for the last 4 years. They've had this great run. I think this roster is going to be reshaped at some point in the next couple of years. A lot of those guys are getting old. I think there's a chance that attrition eventually catches up with a lot of those guys. So my guess, John, is that they're going to have to reset this roster in some ways. Now, I don't mean all of them are gone. I just, like 2014, I don't think that's going to
It's not
happen.
going to
I
be the
think,
same.
but I do think a couple of those guys are probably closer to the end than they are to the beginning. And so I would love for them to have more picks, especially if the Trent Williams retirement is impending, because that's something that we just don't know about. And I feel like the fact that he thought about it this offseason makes me think that, like, that could happen at any time, really. And he has nothing left to prove. He's going to walk in as a first ballot Hall of Famer tomorrow. And
Maybe
so
that
it's
ring,
really
that's about it.
right. Right. It's really just up to him on how much he just really wants to keep playing. And so I would love for them to have, a few extra picks in case they need to go make a big trade, right? I mean, look at the tackle market right now. Look at
Yeah.
the deal Laramie Tunsil just got. In fact, John, with the deal Laramie Tunsil just got, I wouldn't be shocked if Trent Williams wants to fix his contract a little bit up next year.
It's going to be interesting. There's no way you can constantly keep all these guys against age and against injuries and against the cap. Like, something has to give way. I think you can keep the nucleus, but
Right.
again, you look at the top 7 players on this team, somebody's not coming back probably, like you said.
Yeah.
So next year is going to be interesting.